Hey, what's happening, Bengals fans? Welcome to another edition. We're back for episode 2 of Inside the Jungle. After 4 years off, we've made it back-to-back weeks, talking all things orange and black. Cincinnati Bengals over the weekend. They draw. It was almost like I was doing my soccer podcast, gents. Get to talk about a tie. The Bengals tied the Philadelphia Eagles 23-23. I mentioned soccer, and AC doesn't even, like, you could just see he's growling over there. He doesn't want to talk about soccer. He wants to talk about football. And that's what we're here to do this week here on Inside the Jungle. Joe Burrow with yet another impressive performance for a rookie in just his third start. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that. The defense giving up scores in both ends of each half. Not good defensively. But more importantly, Randy Cavs was almost perfect on the day. We want to hear from you. I want to hear from you, Bengals fans. You can always email us insidethejunglepod@gmail.com and follow us on Twitter as well, Inside Jungle Pod. Let's welcome in my guys for this week. Mickey, we've made it back-to-back weeks, man. Are you ready to talk some football?
I'm ready, man. It's like Nick, it's like an old comfortable shoe, right? Like it's that shoe you toss in the garage. Then you put it on. You're like, man, this fits well. This is what it feels like right now.
It does fit well. Looking forward to getting your thoughts on what happened over the weekend against the Eagles. Of course, we welcome in Beam Me Up Scott Bantel. Scott, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Mickey, I think that's the grass cutting shoe that you're talking about that's sitting in the garage that fits so well. Things are going good. Tie's better than a loss, right? Maybe.
Yes. I guess. Yeah. I mean, you were one of the closest last week with your prediction, Scott. You had the Eagles with 23, so you nailed that one. But unfortunately, no, the Bengals couldn't get 4 more for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, that play calling, I think we're going to get into it at some point here, I think came back to bite me and the Bengals.
Yes, they did. And speaking, hey, look, we always, it wouldn't be Inside the Jungle without going over to our resident Bengal over on the best coast, the left coast, Anthony Cosenza. AC, how's it going, buddy? Did you survive your tie weekend?
It's going well. I suppose I survived it. It's just kind of one of those things that it's Cincinnati Bengals football, gentlemen. Cincinnati Bengals football wouldn't be 2020 and wouldn't be Bengals football without some form of a weird result like we saw on Sunday. That's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's talk a little bit about that the game over the weekend, shall we? If this isn't a metaphor for Cincinnati Bengals football, I don't know what is. I spent my Sunday morning in preparation for this game by installing a new toilet. So there's that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I think that's foreshadowing.
It is. Bengals again. Once again, look, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to be happy about, right? I mean, because obviously I think we can all say that we're pretty comfortable and confident in saying that they have found their quarterback, right? I mean, once again, Joe Burrow with another spectacular afternoon, doing what he needed to do to get the Bengals in position to win. They just couldn't get over that hump. So Mickey, we look at this performance from we'll just say from the quarterback perspective, right? We could touch on the line and some of the other things, but what did you make of Burrow's performance on Sunday?
There was a lot of good. I still think there's times where, he's holding on to the ball too long. But there was a couple moments, especially in this game. I think it was negated on a penalty, but where he rolled out, did another little turn inside, found Higgins down the sideline for a play to keep the drive alive was just incredible. Like, now that's a play Andy Dalton would never make, right? Most veteran quarterbacks wouldn't. They'd just take that lane out of bounds and it'd be done. So there were some impressive things for sure. But Nick, I got to tell you, getting sacked 8 times, getting hit every time you have the ball, that's not a good recipe for a rookie quarterback.
No, at this rate, he's about to be sacked the same amount of times as one David Carr did back in, was it 2002 for the Texans in his rookie year, being a number 1 pick. Yeah, not good. But Scott, we saw some positives.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think the same things we've been talking about each week so far, which is despite the terrible offensive line play. We have another outing with no interceptions. 300 plus yards. He's making plays where plays really aren't there to be had. The example that Mickey brought up was a perfect one. It's one that Dalton and many others don't make. The sad part is that those seem to be the best plays that we got going right now in our offense, which are the breakdown plays, which you can't really live on broken plays. Eventually, some plays that you actually call have to work.
This is true. I do want to touch on that. What do we want to call it? The spin move, the spin cycle pass that ended up being nullified by the penalty. I was watching the game with my son and daughter, AC, and I've watched a lot of football with my kids. Never has my son reacted the way, and my daughter for that matter, reacted the way that they did when they saw him almost pull off a crazy pass like that spin move. What when you saw that play? What were you thinking?
Shades of what I think was the SEC championship game of last year against Georgia. The play he made where he spun out of the grasp of a couple of different Georgia defenders. It was like an identical play, less yardage, but same kind of play. And you get excited, and then of course, by a matter of inches, right? Yep. The Cincinnati Bengals just can't get out of their own way. You guys were kind of talking about the protection issues. I did a little research for those who are kind of the data geeks. Football Outsiders, their website, they've got Joe Burrow. I think his sack rate right now is about 11% of his dropbacks. So
that's not good.
Yeah, not good. Bobby Hart leads the league per Pro Football Focus in quarterback pressures with 15. Andrew Thomas, the rookie for the Giants, is right behind him with 13. So a lot of issues up front, and obviously you're seeing that by 8 sacks in a game given up. Fortunately, they've got a quarterback that can ad-lib. He can make things happen, and he doesn't seem to be rattled by the pressure. I'm sure like you all were, I was very, very worried about that hit that he took from Malik Jackson, kind of in that chest, shoulder, neck, maybe even chin region. I'm sure Malik Jackson's going to get a nice fine for that one. But, I love what I'm seeing from the kid. I feel bad for him that the protection is not holding up. He does not have a run game to rely on because of the protection up front or lack thereof. And he's kind of doing it all himself. And really, you can put some of these sacks on Joe Burrow, but it's really because he's scrambling around trying to make things happen. And you can't really fault him for that.
Yeah, Bengals making a change at halftime there with the line pulling right guard, putting in Billy Price in the second half. We really there were times where it looked good, but then when it really mattered, Mickey, it just did not work out for Billy Price there, especially in the overtime going up against Fletcher Cox. Fletcher really owned him when it mattered.
Yeah, the whole side of the line, the line in general is just getting beat. Obviously the right side, struggling pretty bad. But yeah, they need to find an answer quick because, 11% of your dropbacks is, you can't survive a season doing that.
Right. Well, one thing that they could do, Scott, and I don't know why they're not, and at this point, just for the sake of keeping your quarterback on his feet, is maybe call some more run plays, right? Even if they're not getting any yards, at least you're keeping Joe off the ground.
Yeah, I guess a run play keeps him from dying each time. The unfortunate thing is that's almost waving the white flag though, because we take a look at what they're getting in the run game, and I think Mixon's averaging 3.2 yards a carry. So that they're not getting anywhere in the run game either. I heard AC mention it before about the fact that some of these sacks are on Burrow because he's extending plays, and they are. The other sad thing is, how many sacks might he have if he wasn't able to escape some of these? He was sacked 8 times on Sunday. It could have been 12 probably that he got out of. So it's just, I don't know what they did last year in the last 8 games because their run game did take off. So it seems like they should have a recipe there for fixing it, at least in terms of the run game, but we just haven't seen it yet.
AC, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, I guess I don't really understand the Bengals' mindset and how they addressed or didn't address the offensive line this season. I know there were a lot of holes to fill. You had to obviously get a quarterback. You had to get an exciting young wide receiver. You had to get the linebackers. I understand all of that, but it's just I've been thinking about this. You invest a number 1 overall pick in Joe Burrow, arguably the most exciting quarterback prospect to come out of college since Andrew Luck, maybe even before that. And then you pay money to Joe Mixon, this big contract to Joe Mixon. You're, one of the top running backs in the league, but you don't do anything up front to protect those 2 assets. And I don't really. You relied on Jonah Williams coming back, and Jonah's been flashing. He's been showing some good things.
Didn't have a good start.
Yeah, he let up a sack early, but
early.
But he settled in and he ended up playing a little better. It's just. I don't know. I guess I wonder what the Bengals' mindset was. They told us all offseason they like the offensive line much better than we fans and, some of the media pundits, et cetera. And it unfortunately, they're proving to be wrong in this facet, whereas the rest of us are kind of proving to be right. And I don't want to – trust me, I don't want to be saying I told you so.
Sure. And honestly, Zach Taylor said a couple times this week in the media that he went back and watched the tape, and it didn't look as bad as it seemed. Right, all the dropbacks and all the hits. Like, not all of it was on the offensive line. Not all of it was on Joe Burrow. It's a combination of things, right? And the play calling and whatnot. I still go back to, there was a stretch in this game where Joe Burrow completed 13 passes in a row and was on fire. Ultimately, there was poor play calling in the red zone twice there in the second half, Mickey, where they ended up settling for field goals, trotting out Randy Cabs. I
love that nickname, by the
way. You get it there, 1st and goal, and you throw a fade to Auden Tate. Okay, 1st down, I get it. 2nd down, you get stuffed on the run, and then on 3rd down, you're doing another fade to Auden Tate. I don't know. Play calling once again comes into play here.
So I'm glad we got to jump into this, right? So if you remember, Nick, my wife is from Kansas City, so I get to see a lot of Chiefs games, right? And what we saw last night was just an incredible display of NFL football, right? But what's so interesting about what Bieniemy and Reed do with that team is if a defense finds a weakness, their play calling negates that weakness. There was a play last night where Mahomes rolled out, went 14 yards deep, I think, and then threw a bomb. That bought him so much extra time, and he rolled to the left where he was getting a little extra time. Like, the Bengals aren't making those calls. We're running a sweep on the goal line behind the weakest part of our offensive line and wondering why we're getting stuffed. The Bengals have always been this team to me. They think of a scheme and then expect the players to fit that mold instead of analyzing the players they have and scheming around that. It's opposite. And I don't know why we're still doing that. I was hoping a young coach could break that, but it's not happening. It's insane that we still try to run behind the right side of our line. It makes no sense to me.
Man, I feel like, that's what we did back 4 years ago when we were doing this podcast, right? Pulling the left guard, running right, little power O.
Yep.
It's not really working right now, Scott.
No, it's not. That right side is just absolutely killing them. I found it somewhat humorous this week when they made a move on the offensive line. They cut I don't remember the guy's name, but they cut someone on the one of their backups and
Shaq Calhoun.
Right, brought in some other no name from the Dolphins. I got a text today that this guy they brought in, I think he scored a 2 from PFF on his pass blocking grade. So, it seems like just window dressing, like they're wanting to show people that, hey, we're trying, but that's not really trying. If they want to try, an idea would be maybe trade someone. Apparently, John Ross isn't playing. Trade him. Can we trade a John Ross and a draft pick for a decent, a serviceable right guard? It seems like that would be possible.
Well, I mean, who's going to want John Ross?
Someone could use him, right? I mean, we saw at the beginning of last year, he can be effective. There's plenty of teams out there looking for wide receivers, especially wide receivers with speed.
But you got to be able to catch.
I don't know. Raiders don't care about that much. Maybe they would take him.
Ross would be great in a field day. But man,
I mean, at this point, you might as well try to trade him. You may not get anything, but I mean, could you get a backup guard for Ross? That might be better. I mean,
but what team right now in the NFL is in a position to really give up even a backup guard at this point?
Jets and Giants season is over.
Well,
what do they got?
Yeah, but I don't know. I still go back to the play calling a little bit, right? I mean, there was a couple times where the AJ Green on third down gets targeted, but even the route is shorter than the sticks. Like, that's football 101, AC. And I know AJ is trying to knock off the rust, but he's not getting the separation that he used to, and he definitely does not look like the speedy player we once had.
Are you referencing the play at the end of the game that they were kind of the crossing route that he was kind of dragging across? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was a design pick play. And if you
without the pick,
if you watch the play, I think Drew Sample was supposed to do kind of a subtle pick, and he the way he ran his route, it did not work out the way that it was designed, at least from some of the breakdowns I've seen. But
yeah. They ran it twice.
You're right, though. I mean, I think there's two occasions that happened where he came up short of the sticks. And, at some point, I understand that this short passing game is playing to Burrow's strengths and to the offensive line's weakness, so you can get the ball out quickly. By the way, how many years in a row have we said that when Andy Dalton was under center? It's like, get the ball out quick because you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that, but yeah, you are 100% correct, Nick. You got to start drawing up plays. If you're this offensive guru that got you this job in Zach Taylor, you got to have plays in your back pocket, and you got to have plays in your back pocket for that overtime scenario when you've got one timeout, 10 seconds left, you're deep in your own territory. Throw something up, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe have a scenario at the end of regulation where you don't take a knee and just absorb the tie. I don't know. I just feel like there are situations in the game where this young staff is not fully prepared to give a play to put this team in a successful position.
So we're he had 16 games a year ago, 3 now, so 19 games into the Zach Taylor era, Mickey. I know he's a young coach. I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, gents, I will admit I did not watch a lot of Bengals football last year, but
you didn't miss much.
Okay. He's calling the plays, correct? And last I checked, this is his first time doing that. He's never been a coordinator in the NFL. So at what point do we chalk it up to maybe this ain't working and you need to let maybe Brian Callahan call the plays, or I don't know. Do you even think this is working?
It's not working, obviously. But
is there potential? Are you still in the boat of let's give this guy a chance? It's only year 2, or are you seeing shades of Shula in the mid '90s?
I'm seeing shades of Shula. I mean, I think all the decisions that this team has made in the last 2 years are not going to put you in a place where you're going to win. I mean, other than Burrow, who's, like I said, I hope he's the greatest thing ever. He can't do it on his own. And I don't know. And I'm just baffled. We talk about the Chiefs. Like, what does Zach Taylor have that a guy like Bieniemy doesn't have?
It's a good question. Because at least go ahead, AC.
Andy Reid.
Right.
True.
I did a little thinking about this, and I'm glad when we were kind of doing a little bit of the show prep that this was kind of a conversation point because I accidentally did homework on it. But I thought back to the Rams and when Zach Taylor was with the Rams, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, Zach Taylor brought a lot of aspects, play call wise, and taking over play calling and all of that Sean McVay, he adopted a lot of things and brought them to Cincinnati, put his own spin on them a little bit, but tried to bring that to the Midwest from the West. And I'm kind of thinking, I'm going, what's different? What's different? What was different? And I just happened to look through the coaching staff makeup of both teams as they're currently constructed. And I thought back to when Zach Taylor was the quarterback's coach a couple of years ago with LA. And as I did my homework, I noticed that there were two coaching positions that Sean McVay used when Zach Taylor was in LA and currently uses that Zach Taylor has not decided to employ on his staff. And that is a pass game coordinator and a run game coordinator.
Really?
So he's got an offensive coordinator. He's got various assistants, positional coaches, but there are two specific coaches, run game coordinator, pass game coordinator. And ironically, the passing game coordinator still is a guy named Shane Waldron, who the Bengals interviewed alongside Zach Taylor a couple of years ago. So I don't know if that means something. I don't know if it means a lot. I don't know if it means nothing. But I do think that maybe that was something that Zach Taylor, as a young, unproven coach, Nick, you mentioned that he was never a full-time offensive coordinator in the NFL. In fact, I think it was only on an interim basis. That may be something he should have implemented, or the organization should have given him the check to go ahead and hire maybe some people he entrusts in those positions if he's going to assume play caller mantle, all of that. So that was just something I kind of thought about this week.
I think it's funny that you would think the Bengals would be willing to spend extra money on extra coaches. That doesn't sound like them.
It doesn't. But if he supposedly blew the doors off the interview and had this grand plan that he was going to bring to Cincinnati, you would think maybe that, I don't know. I would think that would maybe be part of it, but I guess not.
Well, they definitely could use a running game coordinator, a passing game coordinator, Scott, and an offensive line coach. Yeah, just I'd hate to be that guy 2 episodes into our return already. I'm trying to be upbeat and positive about what I'm seeing, because what I'm watching on Sundays is I'm excited about the quarterback. I'm not excited about the hits. I'm not excited about seeing him almost get absolutely demolished like he did on the one play. But like that's like it right now. There's nothing else on this team that right now I'm like super gung-ho about. I mean, we talked about it a little bit last week. Defensively, we were wondering where the pressure was going to come from. We kind of saw that a little bit this weekend on the defensive side.
Couldn't tackle, though.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get to that a little bit later. So Mickey's seeing shades of Shula. Are you, Scott? Are you in that camp?
Not quite yet. I think like what I see with Zach Taylor is I'm not off the boat yet as far as him being able to be an effective head coach, right? I like what I see from him from an ability to create a culture within the organization that needs to be there. That part I like. The problem is that the culture doesn't matter if you're not winning, right? And that's what he's lacking right now. He's lacking the winning part, which goes back to his coaching staff. Some of that falls on him, and some of it falls on, look, if he wants to stay as a head coach in this league, he's going to have to make a decision at some point in time here where he's going to have to start firing some of his buddies. The offensive line coach, I think is someone that we all have been pointing to since he hired him. I think was a poor hire. Clearly that's not working. The defensive coordinator doesn't seem to be working. The offensive coordinator, I don't know what an offensive coordinator does when the head coach is calling plays, but whatever Callahan's doing isn't working. So at some point in time here, either Zach Taylor's got to go, or he's got to be okay with letting those people go and bringing in some people that can help. I think it's clear at this point, Zach Taylor shouldn't be calling plays. I am fine with Zach Taylor as the head coach as long as he stops calling plays. And I would like someone in here calling plays that knows what they're doing, because right now, if you look at this Bengals offense, I'd be hard pressed to find another team that has better skill at the skill positions than this offense has. Regardless of the offense line, they should be able to move the ball, and they can't. And that comes right down to coaching. Whether it's play calling, whether it's the inability to scheme, something's going on. Something needs to change.
Yeah. And I go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the show, Scott kind of tipped his hand there, right? When he was talking about trading Ross, getting linemen, he made the crack that the Giants' season's already over. Like, me. Like, my mantra was I'm the eternal optimist. Like, I never was, but like, this is a rebuilding year. Like, and if we expect anything else, it's a bad expectation. Like, we're not going to win this year. And so the bright spot for me is if we are smart enough in the offseason to fill some of those holes in the boat that I was telling you about last week, right? Like, AC says you got a better, a bigger engine to get you to paradise faster. Like, maybe, right? Truly maybe. As long as you can plug some of those holes, I don't care if it's bubblegum or something enough to get you to that other side. Yeah. We don't have that now. And I love Scott's optimism. And when he says he'd be hard pressed to find other teams with the skill positions, I mean, Cleveland, I would argue, has more talent than we do at our skill positions. Obviously Kansas City, I mean, that's a no brainer. But I don't know. I don't know if we're as good, like our tight end, questionable. Receivers, AJ, questionable. I'm loving Higgins. Like, I'm loving what I'm seeing from this kid. Just couldn't stop rooting for him on Sunday. But other than that, I don't know. Like, I like Boyd. I like Boyd a lot, but
so does Joe Burrow. He targeted him quite a bit.
Yeah, but I don't. There's not that big game opener, right? We have a lot of 8-yard passes. It seems like, and so I don't know. It's not clicking. But like, we just need to understand that we are rebuilding, and if we can continue to make the good moves, but what I do agree with Scott is cut some coaches, right? Like, internally we were talking, and I have quotes from when we re-signed Hart from Turner, right? And it's just insane the kind of things that, even though he had the bottom 4 grades of tackles, we paid him in the top 9, and the quote that gets me from Turner says, I thought he was phenomenal. I know he gave up some sacks and pressures and all this other business, but if you really watch him play, like, that's the freaking position. Like, that's what you're not supposed to do. Oh, but don't worry about that. Kid's got great energy. Like, that's a problem. That's a fireable comment right there. So I don't know. Like, my expectations for the season are tempered. I'm pulling for Burrow, stay freaking healthy, and Higgins and the young players. And let's put the pieces in, whether it's free agency or draft, I don't care, but let's do it going forward.
AC, 15 consecutive games now that the Bengals have lost or tied a 1-possession game. Ties an NFL record, by the way. At some point, you'd like to see from your coaching hire the ability to win games when it matters, or make play calls when it matters. Mickey's seeing shades of shoeless. Scott's not there yet. How about you? Are you in the camp of he is not the guy?
I'm not. I think it's still a little early. I don't know if I'm willing to give him this supposed 3-year window that all young coaches kind of get to rebuild the roster and all that. I think, the bye once again is in the middle of the year this year. I think at that point, once we see, even though it's only probably another, 4 or 5 games, I got to look at the schedule to be sure, but I think it's only another 4 or 5 games away until that bye. I think, even if a tie is a tiny, tiny, tiny baby step, I think unfortunately that's maybe what we have to take at this point. But I'm not ready to write him off quite yet. I'm also not ready to give him 3 years just based on what we've seen. I do think, like Mickey said, I do think there are some holes that need to be filled. I do think that, on the other hand, though, I think that Jim Turner, and the organization vouching for this offensive line and paying money to a running back, drafting a quarterback number 1 overall, and putting them behind that line and telling us we're all stupid for doubting the results that we're now seeing. I guess I don't know if that's Zach Taylor that's the driving force behind that. Then that really, really concerns me.
Yeah. Well, at this point in his career, Zach Taylor has one more win than Hugh Jackson did in their first 19 games. I don't know if that tells you what you need to know about the current situation with the Bengals. So I'm not in the camp just yet, but I'm seeing shades, like Mickey said. I think at some point you got to show that you're able to win ball games as a head coach in this league. I don't care how bad your roster is. I don't care. You're an NFL head coach. That's what you're getting paid to do, is win games. So we'll see. We want to hear from you, though. Inside the Jungle Pod at gmail.com. Hit us up. You can also follow us on Twitter as well at Inside Jungle Pod. We got a lot of folks tuning in tonight. I got to give a big shout out to old friend of the show, Fatal Content, tuning in. What's up, Fatal? How's everything down in South Beach? He's a happy dude right now because his Miami Heat are in the NBA Finals. Don't think I didn't forget, Fatal. He says, I'm excited about Higgins, Joe Burrow, and Bates III is a stud. We need to add some Miami Hurricanes. That sounds about right, Fatal. That's the issue. Get some O-line help in free agency and draft and get Brevin Jordan. So that's Fatal. Let's see here. Mark Young tuning in. A good friend of the show as well. Does Burrow need top talent from skill positions? I don't know about that, Mark. I think he's got it right now, doesn't he, gents? He's got a pretty good cast around him other than the offensive line. At least that is my perspective on that. Any thoughts on that, gents?
Top 10 pick, wide receiver John Ross, top 5 overall pick, AJ Green, Joe Mixon, one of the top running backs in the NFL, T. Higgins, basically a first-round pick. He was the first pick in the second round. Maybe some weaknesses at the tight end, but to me, and I don't mean to cut you off, Scott, to me, I think it's glaring what the issue is, and all of those players, as talented as they already are, will look immensely better behind offensive line additions.
Yeah.
So I'm derailing your show, Nick. Just question for this group. So Mixon signs a huge deal. We're still so predictable with him, right? He's off the field on third down. We don't do anything different. I like Gio. Gio had a huge long third down pickup. Super great. But why is it we wait, one, to bring Gio in on third down, and why can't we switch it up, leave Mixon in later? Mixon's got good hands. He can catch the ball. We don't do any of those things to change up the look. Are we too predictable?
Oh, we're 100% predictable.
Yeah.
We're throwing on first down. We're running on second and long. Joe Mixon leads the league in second and long carries this year. It's incredibly predictable.
Yeah, I have on my notes here for today, as far as play calling goes: conservative, ineffective, predictable. Specifically with second and longs. Zach Taylor, if it's second and long, it is 100% a run. Eventually it'll work, but if we can predict that second and long is going to be a run, I've got to think that every defensive coordinator is onto the fact that second and long with Zach Taylor, here comes a run, right?
But go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say, AC, there were flashes in this game where I thought that Zach Taylor had Jim Schwartz, and that he was the Eagles defensive coordinator, on his heels a little bit. They were making plays. They were having a hard time cover Tyler Boyd. So there are flashes that I see where, okay, there's obviously something there, but at the same time, Schwartz made the adjustments, and then when it came to be important time, we're back to the conservative approach.
Way too streaky. They start the game with 4 punts and end the game with 3 punts and a draw play to end overtime. And sandwiched in between that, Nick, was a lot of settling for field goals, a couple of touchdowns, right?
That draw play was going to be a winner in OT. We all know it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's way too streaky. And they need to figure out some consistency. And just to the other guys' points briefly about the predictability of the play calling, what's a byproduct of these first down throws, second down runs, all that kind of stuff. A defense can then not only guess what you're going to do, but since they're pinning their ears back on obvious passing situations or obvious run situations, they're putting more pressure on your offensive line, which is struggling as it is. And that forces holding penalties. That forces false starts. That forces all that kind of stuff that we're seeing as well. So it is just a giant snowball effect that's happening on offense when they get predictable.
How are you going to get false starts when there's nobody in the crowd?
I don't get that either.
Oh, my goodness. Doesn't make any sense.
One other thing real quick, and Mickey brought up Gio, and I've been wondering about this for like 2-3 years now since we drafted Mixon, is how many times have we seen Mixon and Gio in the backfield together? I mean, is there a rule against having the two of them in the backfield together?
Well, you might have to start doing it so you could help block.
A worst case scenario, yeah, you got an extra blocker. Like, I don't get it. You go back to like the Bengals in the 80s when they had James Brooks and Nicky Woods, and you saw lots of backfields that had the two running backs in. I know it's a different time, but you got two guys that can run the ball and catch the ball. It's a strength of your team. It's a spot that you're deep in. Why wouldn't you have something that uses the two of them?
I think linebackers are faster now. I think, people would prefer to have two tight ends, like the Eagles do a lot, than two running backs, right? Because if you're not, are you tipping your hand there that you're going either to a swing pass or a handoff to a running back? I don't know. Defenses are a lot faster. Yeah,
that's true. Well, yeah, I mean, I would love to see some creativity there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't even necessarily have to be in the backfield. Mixon can line up at receiver.
Yeah.
He's shown that ability.
Gio, definitely. I mean,
Gio
he's
as well.
a great receiver.
Unfortunately, when you look at Gio's numbers over the last couple of years, you see this kind of dip and you go, oh, he's getting older. He's getting ineffective. That's not really the case. They have to use him as a blocker, and he's good for his size as a blocker. If you watch, he actually gets his head in there and picks up blitzers all the time. And unfortunately, that has limited his ability to be effective on third down as a receiver, a little outlet kind of option, because they have to use him as an additional blocker because of the issues up front. Have I mentioned the offensive line's a mess? I feel like I've said that like 17 times.
Broken record, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So while we've got a moment, I want to just remind everybody to please leave a rating and review for Inside the Jungle on Apple Podcasts. We're available there. We're available on Spotify as well. This week, we got 3 new Apple Podcast reviews from fans of the show, which is pretty incredible since we've only been in the directory for a week now. First one is from our old pal, Scott Barber. He titles his review, "The First and Best Bengals Pod of All Time. Love to see this pod back. Hooday." Thank you, Scott. We appreciate that. The next review came from Cincy Sports Fan. So happy you guys are back. Second most exciting thing about this season for me as a Bengals fan. So thank you for the review, Cincy Sports Fan. And last but not least, the first Apple Podcast review we got in our return to podcasting comes from Blue Shark. And they write, "Comeback Podcast of the Year. I used to consistently listen to this Bengals podcast and found it both informative and entertaining. All of the personalities mesh super well together and make it fun and interesting listen. If you are a Bengals fan, this pod is a must listen." Blue Shark, thank you so much for the great review. We really do appreciate that. To leave a review, it's as simple as heading over to our show on Apple Podcasts. You can search for Inside the Jungle there, or to make it easier for you, just go to bit.ly/Inside the Jungle Pod. And while you're out there subscribing to the show, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Bit.ly. Man, I cannot talk tonight. Bit.ly/ITJ YouTube. And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube Live right now, there are quite a few of you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode of Inside the Jungle. All right, let's talk a little defense, shall we, gents? There were times, believe it or not, this weekend where I thought defensively they actually kind of played well. For 56 minutes of the game, they did okay. And then in the last 2 minutes of the first half, last 2 minutes of the second half, not so much. Overtime, actually, there was more than 60 minutes. I forgot there was overtime. They played pretty well there too. They got put in some pretty bad positions there in overtime. Were able to manage Philly to have to settle for a punt there at the end rather than a 59-yard field goal. So defensively, gents, were you Were you more upbeat after watching this game? I know they gave up those 2 scores, but they did at times play better, Mickey.
Why can't we wrap up the quarterback? How many times did we almost have an incredible stop, sack, whatever, and then the extremely light on his feet Wentz, just makes us look silly, and we can't even wrap up. That was the most frustrating. You make those plays, you change this game, in a big way, but we didn't.
Yeah, they ended up with 3 sacks on the day. There should have been more for sure. I think Carl Lawson missed one where he had Carson Wentz dead to rights. Sam Hubbard missed one where he just slipped off him. And then the game tying score at the end of the game, Carlos Dunlap is there. He's right there. He leaves his feet to try to block the pass. And the minute he leaves his feet, he loses all of his leverage and gets blown out of the play. And now Wentz is free to break contain and get outside the pocket, Scott. So there were times where it did look a little better, but in the end, they just couldn't make enough plays.
Yeah, and one of those missed sacks, if you remember, Wentz ended up scrambling for like 20 yards, and then we got a personal foul, late hit out of bounds for another 15. So they definitely swung the game. Nick, yes, the defense did look better. We also have to take a look at the opponent.
Yeah, they were missing a lot of players.
Yeah, Goddard was out most of the game. They're missing essentially their entire receiving
Deshaun
core.
Jackson was out.
Yeah, Deshaun, and I think they were missing 3 starting offensive linemen. So yes, they were better. So we need to give credit that they did get better. But part of me is still concerned: was it just a matter of the competition they were going up against? But I guess like the tie, we'll take baby steps.
And we did, end up positive on the turnover battle in this game.
That was a good thing.
Logan Wilson gets his first interception. And I thought he played a pretty good game as well for being a rookie in just his 3rd game. He is starting to show improvement and a reason why they drafted him in the 3rd round. But what did you make of the defensive side of the ball overall, Anthony? Any thoughts?
The issue with the turnover margin, Nick, the Bengals got 3 points off those turnovers. So
yeah, that's not good.
I would argue that, there were a lot of issues on defense and there were a lot of problems with tackling. The two pass interference plays on the final drive in a span of 3 plays that gave up almost 30 yards was just maddening. But through it all, really, in 2 of the games, the defense has really kind of kept the team in a position to win, right? You give 16 points up at home, you should win that game in week 1. Here, you give two turnovers, you gift them to the offense, and they get 3 points off of 2 interceptions. Granted, there were missed sack opportunities. I think also Lawson had another hit on Wentz that caused a fumble that the Eagles ended up recovering.
Yep, that's right.
So there's a missed opportunity there. So it's by no stretch of the imagination is it perfect. But in 2 of the games, at least, they fell flat on their face on Thursday night. We all know that. They still are having issues guarding the run. But, there are signs of improvement. I liked what, like you said, Nick, I liked what I saw out of Logan Wilson. Akeem Davis-Gaither had major issues on a few snaps, covering Miles Sanders going down the sideline. But, William Jackson, aside from the pass interference penalty, he's playing some of his best football so far this year. I think he's been playing pretty well. I like the Mackenzie Alexander acquisition. There are a lot of kind of individual things to like. It's just a matter of all of these units kind of coming together and feeding off of each other.
We talked a little bit about Carlos Dunlap last week, wondering when we were going to see pressure on the quarterback. Are we at that stage now where maybe this is the time for Carl Lawson to get the nod there at defensive end over Carlos Dunlap? Nobody wants to take that one, really?
I don't know if I'm ready to make that call.
I haven't seen anything out of Dunlap this year. Can you remember one play that
wasn't he responsible for the pick?
I thought it was DJ Reader.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
He did have a batted ball last week and 9 tackles. But yeah.
Okay. I just feel like what I've seen out of him is not a lot of pressure on the quarterback, which we saw Lawson was doing great on Sunday in that regard. And, there's been a lot of running plays that have bounced outside because of the fact that Dunlap is crashing down and he's not pushing that play back inside. So, I still like Dunlap, but he's not making plays right now.
He's not.
The issue, they want to mix things up front. And unfortunately, a lot of injuries, whether it's Geno Atkins, Mike Daniels, whoever, the whole kinds of issues they had at defensive tackle throughout the offseason. They want to mix things up. And I think ideally on certain packages, you kick Dunlap inside and you have Lawson flanking him.
But they got Hubbard inside.
Right. So they're trying to mix things up. Unfortunately, Geno Atkins is the guy that makes this whole thing go. They haven't had him. And, they're not able to rotate around, I think, the way they want to. And I just think in general, Carlos Dunlap's a great player. I still think he can be very good. But I think without Geno Atkins, there is a little bit of exposure that happens there.
They did get Mike Daniels back, and certainly that helped. They still gave up 175 yards rushing against an Eagles team with a lot of injuries at the offensive line. Still getting gashed for quite a few. I think they conceded five yards a carry. And you're probably sitting here, you look back at that number and you're wondering, how was this game so close, right? Because Philly should have just been handing the ball off. Why is Doug Peterson putting it in Carson Wentz's hand for him to potentially turn it over, which he did twice? So the fact that we were even in this game in the first place, we'll certainly take it. But let's go to the 2-minute defense, right? I go back to the first half. They score the touchdown, and then they kick off, and Randy Bullock kicks it out of bounds. How? There's like almost no kick returns in the NFL anymore. Like, it's rare when you see a kick return, right? So why are you kicking it anywhere near the pylon? It should just be going right down the field towards the goalposts. Like, he's not going to return it. How you kick that ball out of bounds as a professional kicker in the National Football League is astounding to me, right? So there's my kicker rant. We're done for the day. So, but that gives the Eagles the ball at the 40-yard line, and it makes it a shorter field. And then you knew it was almost like when you saw that ball go out of bounds, didn't you three kind of know? You just knew that, the Eagles are going to score here. You just knew it.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a calf cramp or what that caused that, but it was bad. But yeah, I mean, it was as soon as it happened, I look at the clock and I'm like, damn it, there's enough time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just inexcusable. And it goes back to what we keep seeing with this team. It's just one more example of the way this team fails to make winning football plays. Right. I mean, you could look at this game and you could point to probably 10 plays of just bad football plays. And that's one of them. That was a huge one. Right. I mean, there was like a minute 14 left. The Eagles had one timeout. And Nick, to your point, in my research today on this, I did look at the touchback percentages. And believe it or not, Randy Bullock is actually 7th in the NFL with touchback percentage, and it's 82.35%. So the guy can kick it out of the end zone. So why are you angling this kick with a minute 14 left and one timeout? Like, it's just inexcusable. It's just bad football. And that stuff does end up coming back to coaching. That they just like the AJ Green running short of the sticks. It's just every game this team has, 5 to 10 of these plays where you just scratch your head and you say, it's just, those are non-winning football plays. And they've been in every game. Every game you could point to a couple of these plays, and that, is the difference of the game.
So then, even then, right, the Bengals have done a good job defensively. They've kind of been and they even did this under Marvin. And they were a bend but don't break. They don't give up touchdowns in the red zone, right? They are pretty good about forcing the opponent to kick field goals. They've got a third down late in the half, and the Bengals call a timeout, right? They wanted to see what the Eagles were running. That's great. And they call a timeout, And what happens? They blow, and I don't know I don't know why they're trying to get cute there, Anthony. But you can't. I mean, Greg Ward is still open.
Yeah, here's the thing, and you guys have touched on. I know we're harping on the Randy Bullock thing, but it's kind of that's one play that Scott mentioned that where you get something positive going in one facet of your game, and what good teams do is, okay, hey, the offense did this, now special teams is going to step up here, or the defense did this, the offense is going to take this. So I had a couple of plays just off the top of my head that I remember at the beginning of the game. DJ Reader and Logan Wilson team up for the interception. Yeah. The Bengals get the ball at their 44-yard line. They go 3 plays, 8 yards, and punt the ball from the Eagles' 48-yard line in the first quarter. Then the Bengals score a touchdown late in the second quarter to take the first lead of the game, 10-6. Bullock kicks the ball off. Philly gets the ball at their own 40. They drive down and score. Then at the end of the game, the Bengals get 3 points. They could have probably had 7, but they get the 3 points off the Gio Bernard reception and just over 3 minutes to play. And of course, we know what happens. They allow a game-tying touchdown. So it's like positive step, and then the next unit that comes up to bat is just failing. And that's a sign of either it's a coaching issue, it's a mental preparedness issue, or I don't know. There's just not a clutch gene going on in this team. But when you have a positive play that is being made, the next unit needs to come up and at least be average, not trip over their own feet. So I know we're kind of focusing on defense and the Randy Bullock play in general, but I kind of feel like those were 3 plays where I feel like it was just you do something right, and then it's just, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
And that's the difference between the Bengals and teams that are good, right? All 3 facets complement one another. And right now, there's no complimenting going on right now with the Bengals. They're not complimented offensively because right now all they can seem to do is pass it. I think Burrow ended up with 51 dropbacks again, something crazy like that. I mean, I know why they're doing that because they're having a hard time running the ball, but man, I don't know. There's a lot going wrong. But the good news is we did see the defense make 2 plays with the pick, 2 picks actually, and we did eventually get to see some sacks from them. Good news is, right, we got Jacksonville coming to town, and look, they are no world beaters, and for the first 3 weeks, Cincinnati's faced some pretty stout defensive lines, right? The first one in the Chargers, one of the best in the NFL. Cleveland, as much as we hate to say it, they've got a pretty good defensive line as well, and so do the Eagles. This week, in theory, we should be able to see A, some protection, and B, maybe a dose of Joe Mixon, right? Because the Jacksonville, they're coming off a bad loss to Miami a couple Thursdays ago. So what we used to do on the show a long time ago, believe it or not, we used to do a segment called Bold Predictions. And a good host would have had the audio prepared. I will have that for next week. Don't you worry. So, Mickey, I'm going to start with you. Give me a bold prediction for this Sunday's game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I think the Bengals have 200 yards rushing.
Yeah, I think you just made Scott choke on the drink he just took.
As a team.
Wow, 200 yards rushing. Have they had over 100 yet this year as a team?
I don't know, but I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. We keep seeing these cool Twitters like, oh, Joe Burrow breaks another NFL record, and it's passes, right? Like, that's not necessarily a good record. Like, having to throw that much is not a good sign. Like, if we were 3-0 and he's lighting up the stat sheets, maybe, but we've lost all of our games. Well, pretty much lost all of our games. And he's throwing that much. Like, that's a really, really bad sign for a team. And so I think they're going to feed the run. I think, Burrow will add a couple scrambles, but I don't know. I think we're going to put up some serious rush yards. I could say 150, but that's not bold, Nick.
Yeah. Hey, Mick, I like it. Cojones, right?
That's right.
Yeah. All right. So he's going for 200 yards rushing. Scott. What do you got that's bold?
I'm gonna say 0 sacks.
Oh,
You know, after a week of 8 sacks.
Hopper.
You know, I don't know if they're gonna leave 8 guys in the block or what. We're gonna be running like 7 offensive linemen and a tight end out there as our offense. But 0 sacks. That's my bold prediction.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they're rushing for 200 yards, that will certainly help.
Yep. Could help
with the sack part of it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Do we have 7 offensive linemen?
Well, you know, we've talked about him 2 of the 3 games now of how bad he is, and that's Randy Bullock. Have you guys seen the gut on this guy?
He could.
Do we have any idea? Could he play right guard? Right. I don't know if his calves could hold up to it, but
he'd be in a world of hurt.
maybe we can.
oh man.
What do you top that, Anthony?
Well, we got to get Randy on the show now.
I don't know.
So, you know, Scott stole mine there. Scott stole mine. So I'll kind of build off of both those guys, and I will say that no Bengals offensive lineman has lower than a 70 Pro Football Focus score after this week's game. Which, by the way, that's saying something because I don't think any of them have cracked 70 yet this year. So, yeah, that's where I'm going with that.
All right. I'm going to go bold. I'm going to say that A.J. Green has over 100 yards receiving. It's kind of bold, right? I mean, right now he is not getting any separation. I think the offensive line is going to be able to protect a little bit better this weekend. Fingers crossed, which will allow A.J. Green to get down the field. And so, yeah, I'm going 100 yards receiving for A.J. Green. That's kind of bold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty bold.
All right. Well, we want to know and hear from you, folks. What are your bold predictions? Follow us on Twitter and make sure you tweet at us at Inside Jungle Pod with the hashtag bold predictions. All right, gents, let's get some score predictions. We were pretty close last week, Scott. I'll start with you since you were the closest. You had Philly with 23. What's going to happen this weekend against the Jaguars?
Boy, I tell you what, I didn't know the Jaguars running back's name until like a week or 2 ago, but this guy's having a pretty good season thus far. And we've had problems stopping the run. So I think the Jags are going to be able to put up some points on us. I think the Minshew mustache will have some success in the air. I think this is a must win for the Bengals coaching staff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I will say they will get the win. 34-31 Bengals, high scoring game.
High scoring affair between the Cats
Yep.
this Sunday at the Jungle. How about you, Anthony?
Well, I also think that the Bengals will win, and because I think they're going to win, we all know that it's not going to be a close game because they can't win close games. So I will say
It's got to be 2 scores or more, right?
I know it's got to be eight points plus. So I will say let's go 31-20.
Ooh.
That's where I'm going with that. 31-20. I think last week I had 27-23 Bengals. So I was.
Oh, that was you? I thought it was Scott at 27-23. I'm giving credit to the wrong guy.
Well, I may have.
I think I had 28-23.
Oh,
Yeah, we were Price's Writing last week. Remember that?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so 31-20 Bengals. I think they get the win.
All right. How about you, Mick?
So, yeah, I throw my hands up because AC stole my Bengals score. I have I kind of agree with him. I think the Bengals put up 31. I don't think Jacksonville puts up as much, so I have the Bengals 31-17.
All right. Okay, so for me, one thing that is interesting, I think if Joe Burrow throws for 300 yards in this game, he will join Andrew Luck and I can't remember who the other quarterback was. It might have been Cam Newton to have 3 300-yard games in his first 4 NFL starts. I would love to see 200 yards rushing. I don't see the Bengals sticking to that. I think they're going to continue to throw it and let Joe Burrow do his thing, especially with fans that are going to be there for the first time this season. So I think ultimately Joe's going to air it out again. I hope it's not going to be 50 dropbacks, but if the trend continues, I'm pretty sure that's where we're headed. So I'll say the Bengals get to 35 and they will hold the Jaguars to 21. I'll say 35-21, another 2-score game. because you're right. If the Bengals are going to win, it can't be a one-score game for sure. So those are our predictions. All four of us are going for Bengals wins. Mickey was wrong last week. He said they were going to lose. Well, none of us were right last week, clearly. So, gentlemen, as always, it's been a pleasure this week. Mickey, final thoughts as we wrap up here.
I want to, sign off today, Nick, saying that I don't intend to be doom and gloom. I think if the Bengals continue on the path of bringing in the right people to surround what they've done, it could be really exciting. I just think that this season might be a little painful. Yeah.
Well, the good news is we found the quarterback, we think, right? So there's a lot to be excited about there.
Yep.
And as always, appreciate you being on the show, bud.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Beam me up, Scotty. Your final thoughts as we get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I think this is a must-win, mainly for the coaching staff more than anything. The big thing with building a winning culture is the winning part. So they need to get to that. And I think this is the first game of the season where I think you can say the Bengals have the better roster, top to bottom. So a loss at home to the Jaguars, a team that is clearly rebuilding, and a team that we thought would be tanking for Trevor Lawrence. This would be a massive hit, I think, to the organization and where it's going, where Zach Taylor's wanting to go. So I think this is a must win, and I think they will get it.
I appreciate you being on the show, Scott. For those watching us live on YouTube, I like the number 9 jersey that you got behind you with just me as the name. You want to fill us in? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so you'll notice the other one hanging up there is the Chad Johnson. I've swore off buying jerseys
for players
a while ago, but that was one. I bought it. It's an authentic Bengals jersey, and I got it. It's a Palmer one. I didn't pay full price. It was like $80 or something like that. But I thought that was one that I'd at least be able to wear for a while, and he'd stick around. So when he retired, I unstitched
That's a Palmer jersey.
the name on the back, and I was trying to figure out, I'm like, what can I do with these letters? What can I make out of it? I didn't want to do straight duct tape, and I was like, I'll turn it into a me jersey, right? Now that Burrow, maybe I should go duct tape and just write Burrow on it.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great, Scott.
T.O. would like it.
Oh my goodness,
that's true. Yeah, we could use T.O. right now.
I remember when I had my Palmer jersey, I duct taped over it for the game, and I went to the game. Our good buddy Tim Bates, remember Tim, a former co-host of Inside the Jungle. He and I went to the game when the Raiders came to town. It was Palmer's first game there, and I wore my Palmer jersey, and I duct taped over it with the word quitter. So yeah, no, good times, man. Those are some good memories. Appreciate you being on the show as always, Scotty.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, background king Anthony Cosenza. You got any final thoughts for us?
I did do the similar jersey alteration that you just spoke of, Nick, when I went to a game in Arizona when the Bengals played in Arizona a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I caught quite a bit of grief. So because I was on the road there. Anyway.
Was he quarterbacking the Cardinals then?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what those guys said. So I don't want to really be a broken record, but really, I just want to say that I do think this, even though it's a lowly game against the Jaguars in week 4, I do think this is a kind of a pivotal game, not only for the season, but just kind of morale wise for the team, and really just how we kind of perceive the direction of the team. I mentioned last week kind of the tie, even though it's annoying and frustrating, that may be a little bit of a baby step. And if that's true, maybe then you get the win here, you get a few more wins. I do think, like Mickey said, there's going to be growing pains this year, and maybe the playoffs is not really a realistic expectation for those who thought so. But, I think winning this game, even though it being what it is a positive step going forward. So hopefully they get that done.
I'm with you there, AC. Appreciate you being on the show, bud.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
My final thoughts tonight. I just want to say thank you to everybody who went out and subscribed to the show. and went out and subscribed to the YouTube channel. I was looking at the numbers. I'll tell you what, I was thoroughly surprised at how many people listened to the show last week without really not a whole lot of promotion that we were back. And yeah, so we appreciate you downloading and listening and all the kind words about about us coming back. We're really excited to be doing this again. I'm pretty amped about it. The fact that I get to talk Bengals again. Even my wife said over the weekend, she looked at me. I think it was Sunday Night Football was getting ready to kick off. We were just getting ready to eat dinner, and she said, "I'm really glad you're back into football." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So even she approves. So that's always a plus, right? I was thinking about this week and preparing for the show. Like, I'm kind of with Mickey on the whole. I feel that I'm feeling a sense of Dave Shula all over again, right? And then I'm starting to brainstorm, like, man, who's out there? Like, where could this team even go? So I guess that's a conversation we might have to shelve and table for next week, depending on how this game goes this weekend. I think that will be a pretty good indicator of where things are going with the Taylor regime with the Bengals. So we shall definitely see. Make sure you subscribe to the show so you don't miss a single episode. We are live every Tuesday night at 9:00 Eastern right here on YouTube. So tell your friends, Bengals fans. So that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Jungle. For Mickey, Scott, and Nacy, I'm Seubs. We'll see you next week here on Inside the Jungle. Hooday!
Hooday!